We no longer require your presence here. Kindly vacate the premises. You work from home, freeloader, declared my sister with an air of finality. Even my parents, in a harmonious chorus, chimed in, adding, "Get out. We've grown tired of a family that treats both you and your dog as nuisances. If they're going to adopt such an attitude, then I'll do as I please." It was at this point that my plan for revenge began to take shape. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Kathy, a 33-year-old single woman, who makes her living as a freelance web designer. My job can be executed entirely from the comfort of my home, thanks to the wonders of modern technology. I possess a dedicated workspace within my house and the luxury of setting my own pace. Despite having such a fulfilling job, an unexpected disruption entered my life 2 years ago, in the form of my parents. One day, as I was diligently working from home, my parents made an unannounced visit. The moment they crossed the threshold, they began examining my living space and initiated a conversation that would set the course for the tumultuous events that followed. "My Kathy, this house is quite spacious. It almost seems like we could live here too," remarked my mother, her eyes wandering around the room. "That's true, and it appears there's even a spare room. It seems like a shame for Kathy to live in such a large house all by herself," my father concurred. In their usual fashion, my parents had made a decision without consulting me. I had no intentions of cohabiting with them and made my stance clear. "Hold on a moment. I have no desire to live with you too. What are you even suggesting?" My father's face turned a shade of red as he angrily retorted. "This house was taken over by you, claiming it was from your uncle. You're trying to make it yours. There's a limit to how low you can go." I attempted to clarify, "I didn't take it over. I had a proper conversation with uncle, and he willingly gave it to me." Disregarding my protestations, my parents had already decided to move in. I vehemently expressed my unwillingness to share a roof with them. However, my parents were insistent. "Our old house is falling apart," they claimed, "and it's no longer sustainable for us to live there." My mother, a homemaker, and my father, whose salary wasn't particularly substantial, were in no position to afford the necessary renovations. Consequently, they set their sights on the house I had inherited from my uncle. I couldn't simply abandon them in their predicament, so I reluctantly acquiesced to their moving in. Once they settled into my home, my parents wasted no time in inundating me with sarcastic remarks. "Hey Kathy, you're already in your 30s, aren't you? Don't you have any plans of getting married?" They taunted, never missing an opportunity to point out my single status. "Currently, I find great satisfaction in my work, and I'm truly content with my life. However, there are times when the people around me express concerns about my relationship prospects. They often suggest that I should take cues from my sister, who has a different path in life. Contrary to their expectations, my sister's married life has hit a rough patch. Nevertheless, I remain unfazed, reassuring them that I'm perfectly fine with my current situation." It was during one such discussion that my mother, who had been eavesdropping, decided to intervene in the conversation. She interrupted, "Hey, don't speak ill of your sister like that. Unlike you, she's married, and she's even employed at a company, you know." Defending my own choices, I replied, "I might not be married, but I am doing a respectable job too." My mother wasn't convinced and continued, "You're always just messing around on your computer. You're probably making money through some shady means, aren't you?" I retorted, "Shady means? I'm making an honest living doing legitimate work. There's no need to worry." My mother wasn't pleased with my response and scolded, "How dare you talk back to your mother? You really are the complete opposite of your sister." This constant comparison between my sister and me by our parents was something I had grown accustomed to. While my sister worked as a temporary employee in an office job, I had chosen a different path, one that allowed me to work from home. Although I understood that our parents' generation might not fully grasp the concept of remote work, it still hurt to be consistently belittled. However, one day, as I was preparing dinner in place of my perpetually idle parents, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. To my surprise, it was my sister Sandy, burdened with a massive amount of luggage. "Huh, Sandy, what's going on? It's been a while." I greeted her. With an air of urgency, Sandy replied, "Kathy, this is sudden, but I'll be living in this house from today." Baffled, I blurted out, "Huh? Living here from today? I didn't hear anything about this." Sandy explained, "Didn't Mom and Dad tell you? I got divorced, you see? So I'll be counting on you from today." Despite my initial shock, I attempted to maintain a welcoming demeanor. Ignoring my startled response, Sandy trudged upstairs and promptly claimed an empty room as her own. My parents sided with her, and I found myself powerless to object. From that moment on, my stress levels began to mount. Sandy, after her divorce, had quit her job, and she spent her days talking negatively about me with our mother. "Hey Mom, isn't this dress cute?" Sandy would ask, showcasing her latest shopping find. Our mother would respond enthusiastically, "Oh yes, indeed, Sandy. You're so pretty, it will definitely suit you." Sandy would then turn to me and remark, "Do you think so too? It's totally not something Kathy would wear, right?" Unable to escape their critical gaze, I continued to live my life without reacting to their taunts. Despite the desire to retaliate, I realized that it would only play into their hands, so I remained steadfast and unresponsive to their attempts to provoke me. One fine day, I found myself in a heartwarming situation when a close friend of mine became the proud owner of a litter of 4 adorable puppies. It was a momentous event that set in motion a series of events that would change my life for the better. The moment I laid eyes on those precious pups, I knew that one of them would soon become a cherished member of my family. After some deliberation, I decided to adopt a little black chihuahua from the litter and named him Muffin. Muffin was an absolute bundle of joy, with the most endearing round eyes that seemed to sparkle with mischief. Every time Muffin gazed at me, his tail would wag with such enthusiasm that it looked as though it might break off from sheer excitement. The dream of owning a chihuahua had been with me since my childhood, and finally having Muffin by my side brought immeasurable happiness to my life. This was especially true since I often worked from home, and the companionship he provided was a welcomed relief from the solitude of my remote work days. "From today onwards, you're Muffin, okay? Woof," I declared to him, sealing our bond. In the whirlwind of excitement and anticipation, I didn't particularly consult with my family about my decision to bring Muffin home. After all, it was my house, and I was fully responsible for all the expenses related to Muffin's care and well-being. I couldn't see why they should have any complaints. As soon as I introduced Muffin to my family, my parents and my sister Sandy began voicing their concerns and complaints. They expressed their displeasure, stating that they hadn't been informed about my intention to get a dog, and some even mentioned their aversion to the potential odors that dogs could bring. My parents and Sandy were quite vocal in their disapproval. "Hey, we didn't hear anything about you getting the dog," they protested. "Exactly, dogs smell, don't they?" "I hate odors," someone chimed in. "Kathy, how could you just bring a dog home without consulting us? We didn't approve of this." They continued to scold me. In the face of their complaints, I firmly defended my decision. I reminded them that Muffin hadn't been picked up off the street, he was a gift from a friend. Moreover, I emphasized that I was the one bearing all the expenses related to Muffin's care and maintenance, so they had no valid grounds for objection. I added, "What I choose to keep in my house is my business. If you have any complaints, you're free to leave." Initially, their anger and frustration continued to smolder. Their faces were flushed with annoyance. However, something miraculous happened within a few hours. They were completely won over by Muffin's undeniable cuteness. They couldn't resist fawning over him, asking, "Aren't you cute? Are you mommy? Are you daddy? Or are you sis? Look over here, sweetheart." It was as if their anger from just moments ago had evaporated into thin air. My entire family had fallen head over heels in love with Muffin, and he had somehow managed to bring about a remarkable transformation in their attitudes. From that point onward, our home was filled with constant fussing over Muffin. Thanks to his presence, the hostility that once existed toward me began to fade away, and I was able to enjoy relatively calm and harmonious days with my family. However, as life would have it, one day an event occurred that shattered the tranquility we had all come to enjoy. While I was out running an errand, I received an urgent call from my sister Sandy. She sounded agitated and demanded, "Come back home now." Startled by her sudden shout, I asked her what had happened. She unleashed her frustration over the phone, shouting back at me, "It's not what happened, it's what Muffin did. He did his business on my clothes. What if they smell?" I tried to calm her down, saying, "Oh, just wash them quickly and they'll be fine. And isn't it your fault for leaving your clothes all over the floor?" Sandy retorted, "What? It's my fault? It's your poor training that's to blame." I sighed, realizing that this was just a minor hiccup. "Enough, Sandy. Muffin is still a puppy, you know. If you take him out for a walk, he won't do his business at home. You said you were excited to walk Muffin today. Did you actually take him?" I had initially planned to take Muffin for a walk later in the day, but little did I know that this seemingly innocuous decision would set off a chain of events that would leave my family in turmoil. You see, the root of the issue lay in the fact that I had not properly trained Muffin, our beloved canine companion. And that day, the repercussions of this shortcoming were about to unfold. Upon returning home, I was met with an atmosphere charged with tension. My sister, evidently furious, was the first to confront me. She wasted no time in expressing her discontent, her anger palpable. It was clear that she had already informed our parents of the situation. As they too were glaring at me, standing alongside Sandy, our now soiled clothes scattered around. Sandy, clearly distraught, threw the soiled garments at me in a fit of frustration. "I'm going to charge you for the cleaning cost," she declared angrily. "Why should I?" I retorted. "It's because you didn't take him for a walk and left your clothes thrown on the floor." My parents chimed in, urging me to take responsibility for my actions. "Hey Kathy, shouldn't you at least apologize to Sandy first?" they said. "All of this happened because of that Muffin you brought home." As the accusations flew, I couldn't help but interject. "Can't we cut Muffin some slack? Puppies are like babies, they make mistakes sometimes." But my family seemed determined to blame me and our four-legged friend. "This situation only happened because of this stupid dog," my sister reiterated. "Kathy, you made the right choice by not getting married. If you became a mother, I doubt you'd raise a decent child." The comments grew harsher, and my frustration grew. "How dare you say something like that?" I exclaimed. "If you took it for walks properly and kept the house tidy, none of this would have happened." Finally, my sister had had enough. She pointed at me and declared, "I can't take it anymore. I don't need you or this dumb dog. Get out of this house." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. "What?" I stammered. "Didn't you hear me? I said get out. We don't need a home-wrecking freeloader here." The accusations stung, especially coming from someone who knew well that I was currently jobless. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Who did they think was paying for the household expenses? It was me. As I stood there, bewildered by my sister's outrageous statement, even my parents chimed in, echoing her sentiments. "That's right, Kathy, leave this house. Your presence only makes us feel worse. You're a jinx. All of you, just get out." They repeated in unison, their voices echoing in the room. My anger reached its boiling point. I had had enough. "That's it. I've reached my limit." I finally burst out. "If this is how it's going to be, just wait." With that, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I packed my belongings and left the house, with Muffin in tow. Revenge was on my mind as I walked away. But the saga was far from over. A few days later, as expected, my sister reached out to me in a panic. "Kathy, help. The house. What happened to the house all of a sudden?" I inquired, curious about the new twist in this ongoing family drama. "We were told to leave by the end of this month," she replied, her voice filled with anxiety and desperation. The realization hit me like a punch in the gut, and I couldn't help but wonder if this was the universe's way of teaching my family a valuable lesson about compassion and understanding. So what's the problem here? Why do we suddenly have to leave?" Sandy's voice quivered as she struggled to understand the situation. "I've made the decision to sell the house," I calmly stated, and Sandy froze, disbelief evident in her trembling voice. She stammered. "What do you mean? You've decided to sell it? You don't have the authority." A month ago, the house had officially become mine, a fact I had kept to myself. "Yes, I received the house from my uncle, and the title is in my name," I revealed, causing Sandy to react with shock. "You're kidding, right?" Sandy's skepticism was evident. "Even if the title was transferred to you by uncle, you can't just sell it like that." I shared her concern but reassured her. "I was worried too, but right after you told me to leave, I consulted with uncle. He said the house is yours now, Kathy, do what you want. You should get away from that stupid family as soon as possible." Sandy was taken aback, unable to process this unexpected revelation. "What? No way." As our conversation continued, I couldn't help but wonder if my parents had been listening in on my discussion with Sandy through the phone speaker. They started to voice their objections. "Hey, Kathy, cut it out. We have no other place to live if we leave the house." My parents chimed in, trying to appeal to my sense of family loyalty. "That's right, Kathy. It's unthinkable to do this to your own family. If you're a good daughter, show some respect to your parents." With a quiet but firm tone, I responded, "Respect? What are you talking about? You've always looked down on me compared to Sandy. Who do you think has been supporting your life for the past few years? You all had nowhere to live, so I reluctantly let you live with me." My parents were momentarily silenced by my unusually strong words. Without waiting for their response, I continued, "Who treated me and Muffin like nuisances and kicked us out? It was you guys, wasn't it? Trying to be happy by driving out the original resident is shameless. You people belong in hell." My father pleaded, "Please, Kathy, help us. We're sorry." I remained resolute, saying, "I don't care. Fend for yourselves, you idiots." With that, I abruptly ended the call and blocked every family member's contacts. Muffin, my loyal canine companion, looked up at me with a worried expression, and I held him close. "I'm sorry, Muffin, for shouting," I whispered to him. "It's all right now. I will protect you." I was relieved that I had rescued Muffin from the family that had mistreated him. In the days that followed, I learned that my parents and sister had been forced to leave the house at the last minute, despite their desperate attempts to cling to it. My father's meager income and my unemployed mother and sister made it impossible for them to lead a decent life. Rumors circulated that my sister was constantly nagged by my parents to find a job, and their family relationships deteriorated further each day. While I had no interest in how they lived, there was no denying that their standard of living had plummeted since my departure. It was a classic case of reaping what they had sown, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Meanwhile, I enjoyed a fulfilling life in my new pet-friendly apartment, free to work on my terms without anyone complaining. All my earnings were solely for myself and Muffin. I was genuinely content with my life. "Muffin, let's go to the dog park today," I said with a smile. Muffin seemed livelier, perhaps because that noisy family was no longer a part of our lives. Woof. From that day forward, I was determined to protect Muffin for the rest of our lives and lead a peaceful and happy. Today's payday, right? Where's the money? I gave you the money and you don't even say thank you? I feel like you haven't said it once in 18 years. Are you grateful? Respecting your parents is a given. Grateful? Why would I be? You should be thankful to us for giving birth to you and raising you. I see. Mom, you think it's only natural to take my money. What's with you today? A bit rebellious, aren't you? What's wrong? Something happens? You're acting strange. Asking if I'm grateful for getting money, that's weird. What's that about? You're the eldest daughter and we let you go to college. It's only natural for you to be dutiful. Do you think the air you breathe? I think it's strange. Why do I have to give almost all my salary? And why don't all three of you work? How rude. We do work. Just because you're the only one with a full-time job, do you look down on us who work part-time or have temp jobs? You're just being selfish wanting to keep your money for luxuries. Aren't you the ungrateful one? If you don't like it, leave. I doubt Big Sis, who's always cooped up at home except for work, could live properly on her own. I've been giving my family money and supporting them for 18 years. My mind was so warped that I didn't think it was strange. But now, it's different. I clearly see it's wrong. Then, I'll gladly leave. Just leaving will be enough to make my parents and sister regret it. A month later, sure enough, the frantic calls came. I'm Mirabelle. A 40-year-old single, still living at home. People often think I'm mooching off my parents because I'm still at home at this age. But that's not the case. There's a reason I've stayed at home until this age. To explain, we need to go back to when I was in elementary school. When I was 7, my sister was born. Ah, she's so cute. Mirabelle, you're a big sister now. Make sure to protect your little sister. Got it. I'll be a responsible big sister. I have this memory of Dad and Mom, Sean and Sally, being overjoyed at the birth of their second child, Mary. Dad kept poking Mary's cheeks, making her cry, and getting scolded by Mom. He couldn't help himself. I also thought I'd play a lot with my sister once she grew up. But I quickly came to dislike my sister. Mom, I can't find my gym bag. It's where it always is. Look for it yourself, you're a big sister now. The gym clothes bag is always hanging on a hook in the living room shelf. I asked Mom about it because it wasn't on the hook, but she responded in a strong tone, as if I had lost it. Usually, when this happens, the bag turns up in a drawer. Mom sometimes mistakenly puts it away with someone else's clothes. I searched through various drawers and finally found the bag, but Mom showed up at the worst possible time. Hey! Don't mess up the drawers. Sorry. You're a big sister now, don't make extra work for me. Even as a grade schooler, I knew this was unfair. But when scolded by a parent, most children feel at fault, even if they're not. I refolded the disarrayed clothes in the drawer and quietly said sorry to Mom's back. Since my sister Mary was born, Mom started to scold me, and I began to see her as scary. I also became afraid of Dad. Did you buy another toy for Mary? It doesn't matter how many she has. Lucky her, Dad. Buy me something too. Yeah, next time. You said that last time. When will you buy it? Shut up. When I say next time, it's next time. If you keep complaining, I won't buy anything. Dad's shouting made Mary cry, and he frantically tried to soothe her. I was on the verge of tears, but he ignored me. Getting scolded by Mom was bad enough, but Dad's yelling was scarier because he was a man. Dad became a symbol of fear for me. And Mom never took my side. Mom. It's your fault for nagging Dad. You're the big sister, you should be patient. Help me wash the dishes now. Mom handed me a soapy sponge, expecting me to wash the dinner dishes. As the big sister, I took the sponge and washed the plates with practiced movements. Thanks, I'll leave the rest to you. Once I started washing, Mom left to join Mary. I continued, listening to my parents' cheerful voices from behind. It's common for the elder child to feel neglected or be asked to help more when a younger sibling is born. Parenting is hard, and sometimes parents have no spare energy, so it's understandable to some extent. Usually, things naturally resolve as the children grow up. I convinced myself it was just while Mary was little and decided to endure it. But in our family, things didn't change even as my sister Mary grew up. In fact, the difference in how our parents treated me and Mary only got bigger. Hey, Dad, I really wanted this dress. What kind is it this time? If it's expensive, we can't buy it. It's this one, on this page. Looks pricey again. But I really want it. Please buy it for me. All right, all right. I'll talk to your mom, and we can go buy it together next time. Yay! Thanks. Mary was happily waving the magazine around. I never got anything I wanted except for birthdays and Christmas. But if Mary just asked, our parents would have bought it for her. Once, I tried asking like her, but was immediately shut down with "you need to be patient," so I didn't bother asking again. As Mary grew older, through middle and high school, our parents' favoritism got worse. By the way, the washing machine stopped. Can you hang the laundry? Wanting to be seen as a good sister, I obediently went to hang the laundry. This continued, and I found myself always trying to please our parents. It made me so self-conscious that I couldn't relax even at home. Feeling tired even at home, when I was about to start college, I finally spoke up. Mom, Dad, I was thinking of living alone when I start college. Is that okay? I'll work part-time to pay for my expenses. Live alone? Can you handle that? That's right. And we'd be worried about our daughter living alone. You're just saying that because you'd miss Mirabelle, aren't you? Hey, don't say that. When they opposed my living alone, I didn't push it and back down immediately. I thought they only cared about Mary. But I was wrong. They were concerned about me, and Dad didn't want to be separated from me. Realizing this eased my long-held anxiety, and I felt lighter. My wanting to leave home must have hit them hard, because after that, they became kinder. Mom stopped making me do housework, and Dad started asking if I wanted anything. I thought I didn't need to please them anymore, but once I started college, they reverted back to their old ways. Why isn't breakfast ready? Sorry. I was up late doing a report. What? No breakfast? What are you doing? We're paying a lot for your tuition, you should at least manage the housework. Wait, no breakfast? Hurry up, sis. Sorry, I'm in a rush. Rushed, I carelessly reached into the toaster to grab the hot toast. No matter how busy I was, my family of 3 never helped out. They'd usually just sit on the living room sofa, chatting and watching TV, waiting for breakfast to be served at the table in front of them. And my chores weren't limited to breakfast. I was basically responsible for all the household duties, including dinner, cleaning, and laundry. I thought my parents were against me living alone because they cared about me, but I realized I was mistaken. So, before graduating college, I decided to finally leave home. Mom, Dad, I'm going to move out after I graduate. Why would you say that? We thought we'd continue living as a family of 4. Isn't moving out something you do when you get married? That's right. So, you're just gonna leave us after college? We cared for you and paid for your education, and now you're just cutting ties like a detached rocket. I expected my parents to oppose my leaving since they treated me like a maid. So this time, I was determined to stand my ground. However, my parents started crying. Mom begged me not to leave, and Dad accused me of being heartless, ready to leave once I was done using them. Their crying made me feel guilty, and I couldn't go through with moving out. That was a turning point for me. Not leaving home then made my life harder. After graduating, I started working in insurance sales. Though I was no longer a student and had busy days, the household chores were still mostly dumped on me. And with me working, my parents and sister Mary started asking for things. "You're getting your first paycheck soon, right? What are you gonna buy for us?" "Eh? I know a store I want to visit." "Sis, you're gonna buy something for me too, right?" A family meeting about what to buy with my first paycheck started. But it seemed I had no seat at that table. Watching them discuss around the living room table, I felt like my family was very far away. From then on, with every paycheck, my parents and Mary kept asking me for things. Well, it might have been cute if it was just asking. By the third paycheck, it turned into just give us the money so we can buy what we want. The process of buying and giving them things was even skipped. It's rude to just ask for money, even from family, so I had every right to be angry. But since I always tried to keep my parents happy since I was little, I couldn't yell at mom and ended up giving $200 each to my parents. "Sis, me too." Somehow, the habit of pleasing extended to Mary as well. In this house, it seemed that my parents and sister were on the same level, and I was beneath them. I couldn't refuse my middle school sister Mary and gave her $100. When I first started working, amounts like $200 or $100 seemed manageable. But the amounts they demanded kept increasing: $600, $1,000, $1,400. "Here's this month's." "Okay, good job this month, too." When I handed the envelope containing my paycheck to mom, she took it from me as casually as if I were handing her the TV remote. As a new employee, my salary was about $4,000. A year into my job, I was handing almost all of it to mom. Every month, I was left with just about $400. With barely enough money for necessities, I couldn't afford to go out for meals with friends, visit the salon for a haircut, or buy cosmetics. So, I ended up not going anywhere, just commuting between home and work on weekdays. On weekends, I stayed in, leading a life of seclusion. Because I couldn't afford to keep up appearances, rumors at work started about me possibly being in debt or financially supporting a man. Unable to admit that I was giving all my money to my family, I just ignored the whispers I overheard at work. Lacking the courage and willpower to change my situation, 18 years passed, and I turned 40. But it's not like I did nothing in those 18 years. I mustered a little courage and made some small attempts. I was wondering if I could give a little less money each month. "What? What did you say?" Dad glared at me, his face inches from mine. As if he might grab me and hit me. "Never mind, it's nothing." Dad snorted and walked away, and I realized I had been holding my breath, exhaling deeply. Whenever I hesitated to give money, my parents would either cry, intimidate me, or suddenly become nice, always managing to get the entire salary from me. After 18 years at the company, my salary had increased to about $6,000. It was a bit higher than my peers. This was the result of my hard work, but the reason for my effort wasn't something to be proud of. Can't you increase your salary more? You're in insurance sales, doesn't it depend on your performance? You should try harder. I am doing my best. Enough backtalk, just bring in more money. I worked hard and increased my salary. But the extra went straight to my family, leaving me with the same $400 each month. My misplaced efforts to work harder not only resulted in a higher salary, but there was another change. About 10 years ago, my parents quit their jobs and started working part-time and temp jobs. Though they were technically working, they weren't serious about it and didn't take many shifts, so while I worked hard, they were mostly lazy at home, not even doing household chores. The average living expenses for a family of 4 are about $6,000 a month, so my salary could just about cover it. As a result, my parents used my income for living expenses and treated their own earnings like pocket money for students. I'm home. Ah, welcome back. When I returned from work, my parents were lounging on the living room sofa, eating sweets. Their spending might not seem extravagant to others, but to me, who's left with only $400 a month, their casual enjoyment of convenience store sweets felt incredibly luxurious. "What are you eating?" "We bought some for you too. It's in the fridge." Just as I returned from work and was thinking about preparing dinner, my sister came into the living room. Despite knowing I was about to make dinner, she took out a pudding from the fridge that cost about $6. When I opened the fridge to start preparing dinner, my pudding was gone. My sister, who is 33 years old, enjoys eating pudding with our parents. However, like my parents, she's a part-time worker without a stable job. After graduating from high school, my sister didn't pursue further education or employment and has been living off our parents. Since my parents are living off me, it's practically the same as my sister living off me as well. From an outsider's perspective, my life might seem abnormal, filled with frustration and discontent. But having always tried to keep my family happy since I was young, I lack the courage to break free from this environment. I had resigned myself to a life dedicated solely to my parents and sister. Then, one day, a significant turning point arrived. My company introduced an in-house counselor as part of an effort to improve the work environment. However, it's always hard to use something new. So, the company ordered one person from each department to try a counseling session. When my boss asked for volunteers, everyone looked away. In the midst of a busy workday, no one wants to attend counseling if they don't have problems. Whenever there's something bothersome, everyone's gaze turns to me. Plain-looking and known for not refusing tasks, I'm always the sacrificial lamb. "I'll go." I raised my arm, feeling as heavy as lead, volunteering for counseling. In a meeting space at the corner of the office, I started my counseling session. "Any troubles with human relations?" I just had one. Of course, I couldn't say something that would make enemies of everyone at work. "No, nothing at all." Throughout the session, I answered the counselor's questions about work and the office environment tersely, eager to get back to work. But one question made me pause. "How is your relationship with your family?" I did a double take at the counselor. This was an in-house counseling session, and I didn't expect it to delve too deep into personal matters. Getting too personal could even cause problems. Yet, the counselor asked about my family. Clearly, they were good at their job. They must have sensed that I had issues outside of work. Thinking I might never have another chance to open up, I explained everything to the counselor, from the time my sister was born to the present day. The counselor listened intently, but as my story progressed, a deep frown formed on their brow. After I finished my story, the counselor paused for a moment before speaking to me. "That sounds like a form of DV." "DV? Domestic violence?" "Yes. The situation with the money could be seen as economic violence. But the real issue is your relationship with your parents." I was so shocked by the unexpected words that I forgot I was at work and raised my voice. Violence comes in many forms, while physical abuse like hitting or kicking is commonly thought of. There's also psychological abuse like emotional harassment or power harassment. In my case, it seems like economic violence involving money. Moreover, the problem seems to be the process that led me to give money to my parents. Instilled with fear and the desire not to be disliked by my family from a young age, I've been controlled by my family's actions. Occasionally, they would apologize and make me feel guilty or act kindly to make me feel needed, keeping me from leaving. This is a classic case of DV. A mix of reward and punishment, and I've been under mental control by my family, unable to break free. But surely this is a bit of an exaggeration. I'm giving them money, but it's not that bad, right? You seem unable to objectively judge your situation. At my response, the counselor started writing with a pen they hadn't moved until then. The sound of the pen scribbling made me anxious. What should I do? Don't rush. First, think about not how you want your family to see you, but how you want to be yourself. I frowned at the counselor's advice. I had never thought about what I wanted to be. I continued working that day with a sense of unease. The unease remained with me on the train ride home. Looking at my reflection in the train window, I saw my unkempt hair and tired face. My clothes were wrinkled. Seeing myself like that, I thought I should take better care of my appearance. But with only $400 to spend each month, I couldn't afford to spend it all on grooming. Then I wondered, why should I limit myself to $400? I'm the one working. Why am I giving my family money? With each jolt of the train, the fog in my mind seemed to clear a bit more. To fully clear the fog, I decided to confirm something when I got home. Today's payday, right? Where's the money? As soon as I got home, Mom, without a greeting, demanded the money. She was almost expressionless, even though she was about to receive $6,000. The fog in my mind hadn't completely lifted, so I handed over the money as usual. But with the fog slightly cleared, I was able to observe Mom's reaction more calmly. Hey, can't you earn a bit more? You are working properly, right? I gave you the money and you don't even say thank you? I feel like you haven't said it once in 18 years. Are you grateful? Respecting your parents is just natural. Grateful? Of course not. You should be the one thankful for being born and raised by us. So, Mom, you think it's only natural to take my money? What's with you today? A bit rebellious, aren't you? Mom stepped closer to me, glaring sharply. I kept my gaze fixed on her without looking away. It was the first time I really saw the intimidating look on her face. As she approached, I couldn't help but think that she could do with a bit more care in shaping her eyebrows. Hearing our exchange, Dad and my sister, who were in another room, came into the living room. What's going on? Something happens? You're acting strange. Asking if I'm grateful for getting money, that's weird. What are you talking about? You're the eldest daughter, and we let you go to college. It's only natural for you to be dutiful. Do you think the air you breathe? Dad's attempt at humor made Mom and my sister laugh. Before, I would have thought it strange that I was the only one not laughing. But now, it's different. I think it's strange. Why do I have to give almost all my salary? And why don't all three of you work? How rude. We do work. Just because you're the only one with a full-time job, do you look down on us who work part-time or have temp jobs? You're just being selfish wanting to keep your money for luxuries. Aren't you the ungrateful one? If you don't like it, leave. I doubt Big Sis, who's always cooped up at home except for work, could live properly on her own. I began to give up on reasoning with my parents and sister. They barely work, and yet they think it's fine to live off my money. I know they aren't living extravagantly, but they're comfortable using my earnings. I've been secluded at home because I've been supporting the three of them. But they might be right that I can't live on my own. After all, for the past 18 years, I've only shuttled between home and work, letting my parents handle all financial matters. Therefore, I probably don't know things that would surprise others. Embarrassingly, at 40, I don't even know how to set up automatic payments for the electricity bill. Starting to live alone would surely lead to many embarrassing moments. It would be better to stay at home. I would have thought it before. But now, the more I hear their words, the more I feel an anger rekindling inside me that I thought had disappeared since childhood. I realized my fists were clenched tightly, and my face felt hot. The fog in my mind had cleared completely. Do I really need to keep giving money to this family? Why do I even have to give them money? I finally realized the obvious and mustered the courage I never had before. Then, I'll gladly leave. I only took my work bag that was at my feet and started to leave the living room. Wait, are you really leaving? We said too much, I apologize. You'll be back soon anyway, stop being stubborn. Why are you saying you'll leave? Don't say such sad things. As I tried to leave, my sister Mary showed a panicked expression, Dad apologized, and Mom cried, clinging to me. They probably think I'm easy to manipulate and will reconsider if they act this way. This is the reward part of the reward and punishment cycle the counselor talked about. It's so clear when I'm calm. I felt dizzy with shame at how naive I'd been. Then, take care. Wait, you're really going? Apparently, my actual leaving was unexpected, and all three of them froze, speechless. This might be the last time I see their faces, so I etched their stunned expressions in my memory before leaving the house. Leaving the house was such a simple act. Such a simple thing will make my parents and sister regret what they've done to me. A month later, I finally started living on my own, a dream I'd had for 18 years. The initial anxiety is just that, initial. I got used to living alone and enjoyed my newfound freedom. However, my phone kept ringing these past few days, disrupting my mood. After work, I checked my smartphone and saw over 100 missed calls. They were all from my parents and sister Mary. I could have blocked their calls, but curious about their situation after a month, I decided to answer. Finally, you answered. Hey sis, where are you? Help me. Mary's voice was half crying, and I could tell she was genuinely in trouble, unlike before. Their situation was pretty much what I had imagined. The $6,000 I used to give them every month was their livelihood. With that gone, they now had to earn their own living expenses. But none of them had been serious about working, so they couldn't suddenly increase their shifts. Realizing they couldn't survive without jobs, they hurried to find employment. However, with a 10-year gap and being around 65 years old, my parents couldn't find work. And Mary, without stable jobs since high school graduation, also struggled to find a job. They had spent every penny I gave them each month on living expenses and used their earnings for leisure. A family that lived like this for 18 years couldn't possibly have savings. Moreover, they quit their part-time jobs in a rush to focus on job hunting. So, just a month later, they were in a dire situation and turned to me for help. Well, that's tough. Good luck then. Of course, I had no intention of helping them, so I just listened and hung up. Looking back, I can't even understand why I kept giving them money. Their thinking and actions were far from normal, yet I continued to appease them. I was in a mentally distorted state, unable to make sound judgments. The control and manipulation of the mind are terrifying. While my family might be struggling, I'm living comfortably on my own. I'm relieved to be free from my parents' control and thrilled to be able to spend my salary on myself, something so basic yet new to me. From now on, I'll prioritize what I want and live life on my terms. For starters, I plan to go shopping on my day off. Garen, is lunch ready yet? I'm getting hungry. Really? It's only 11 a.m. Marie, you got up late this morning and we had a late breakfast, so I thought a later lunch would be better. Oh, I don't even remember eating. Maybe this is a sign of good health. Louise is hungry too, you know. Is that so? All right, I'll start preparing something now. I wish you'd do these things without being told. You really are inconsiderate. And clean our room already. It's been a week and dust is piling up. Marie, the mother-in-law, takes it for granted to boss around her daughter-in-law. One would think that if she's so healthy, she could do her own cleaning and cooking. I can't understand why she stopped doing things she likely did herself before I came into the picture. I'm Karen Miller, a 30-year-old dual-income homemaker. I'm still working at the foreign company I joined before getting married. There are late hours, but hardly any weekend work, so I should be able to relax on Saturdays and Sundays. But from early morning to late night, I'm kept busy by my in-laws with household chores and errands. My husband doesn't help at all, even though I'm slaving away for his parents, Marie and Louise. I wasn't particular about living together or separately, so when my husband suggested living with his parents after we got married, I didn't resist. But lately, I've been wondering if it was a mistake. Living at home means no rent, my husband said so. Huh? But I thought to myself, of course, I never thought of living for free. But I did think it would be cheaper than renting elsewhere. So we pay for utilities as a sort of rent. We split the food expenses with the in-laws. But since Louise and Marie, who are retired and at home all day, eat a lot for their age, it feels like we're paying more. Still, it's cheaper than renting an apartment. And since I was continuing to work after marriage, having the in-laws around seemed reassuring. I thought it would be easier if we share the housework. When I work late, my husband has already finished dinner with his parents. It's easier than coming home late and having to cook. But there's never anything left for me. We both work, so I thought it was only fair that whoever can do the housework does it. Before we got married, my husband said the same thing. He said, housework is a piece of cake, leave it to me. So I thought he must have been doing various chores up until now. But it turns out, since getting married, he hasn't done a thing. Laundry, cleaning, tidying up. Marie had been doing it all. He won't even make instant food for himself. So even if I'm working late and my husband comes home early, there's no way he'll prepare dinner. I should be grateful Marie's there. Otherwise, I'd have to cook when I get back. But it's disheartening that my husband doesn't say a word, even when my portion isn't prepared. And he never lifts a finger to clean up. The dirty dishes remain on the table, and the used pots and utensils are left in the kitchen. I end up cleaning up after meals I didn't even eat. Coming home tired from work and then dealing with this is quite exhausting. My husband having skipped dinner preparation acts as if he's had it easy, which just adds to my frustration. In this house, everyone thinks it's natural for the daughter-in-law to do the cleaning and laundry. The in-laws don't even clean their own room. On my days off, chores pile up as if they've been saving them just for me. Sometimes I wonder if they're deliberately creating tasks for me. Louis is 68 and Marie is 65, but they're incredibly energetic and talkative. They seem more vigorous than me, so I wonder why they can't do the housework. Well, it's good that they're healthy. It would be much harder if they needed care. That's true, but listen, if it ever gets too much, come back home. You always have a place to return to here. Don't feel like you have to endure everything. If you want to escape, you don't have to suffer in silence. Mom, but you're also going through a lot, aren't you? Please don't overdo it either. Having Mom to listen to my complaints helps me keep going. But right now, I have another worry. My father, Sam, is ill and in the hospital. His condition doesn't seem to be improving. My parents are a close couple, and Mom visits him almost daily. I try to visit as much as I can, but between work and chores at my in-laws, it's hard. When I finally manage to visit, Dad looks so happy, which reassures me. But each time I see him, he looks thinner, and it pains me. Mom must be feeling the same way. Mom, are you resting enough? You look pale. I'm fine, dear. Just make sure to take care of yourself. I know. Mom smiles, but she really looks pale and lacking energy. I'm worried. It must be fatigue from caring for my father. Despite knowing about my father's hospitalization, my husband doesn't visit, and my in-laws act as if it's not of their concern, continuing to give me tasks. I'm not just a submissive daughter-in-law. I push back sometimes. Especially with Louise, who often asks for annoying favors. Karen, can you massage my back? I am tired too, so that's not possible. Why don't you buy a massage machine or ask Marie or Austin? It's a daughter-in-law's job. I don't think so. Luis is fit enough to play golf and go to jazz bar, so he doesn't need that kind of help. Karen, I'm going to take a shower. Can you wash my back? No, ask Marie. It's not fun having an old lady to do it. What sort of fun is he talking about? Since Luis retired a year we got married, it's been like this. When I tell my husband, just wash his back, he unbelievably says, as if I haven't even washed my own father's back since becoming an adult. Luis is just an old man who's technically a relative. To be honest, it even feels creepy. 3 years into the marriage, despite what I thought was fate, I'm dealing with in-laws who dump chores on me, a husband who doesn't help, and no signs of improvement. My own family is ill, and he doesn't even seem concerned. Maybe it's time for me to go back home and take care of my dad with mom. My husband then says, I've got a business trip for a week starting this weekend. Really? Don't contact me unless it's an emergency. It's embarrassing to get calls from my wife all the time. Understood. I wouldn't contact him unnecessarily anyway. I'm also working. I'm not that free and I've never called him at work before. 2 days after my husband left for his trip, on a Monday, I got a call from mom while at work. She has never called me at work before. I immediately think something's happened to dad and answer in a panic. Karen, Sam's condition has suddenly worsened. Mom's voice, crying on the other end, echoes in my ears. My legs start to tremble. I'm coming right away, Mom. I tell my boss, who says, go now. I rush to the hospital by taxi, but I'm met with a cruel reality. Mom's not in Dad's hospital room. Oh, Mrs. Miller, you've just arrived? Where's Mom? I ask, to which the nurse looks down, visibly uncomfortable. Well. My heart pounds. Where is my mother? She passed away. What? For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what I was told. I had rushed to the hospital after receiving a call from Mom about my father's critical condition. But now, they were saying Mom had passed away. It didn't make any sense. This way, please. The nurse led me to another room with just one bed. Dimly lit, someone was lying there. But it couldn't be Mom. Yet, as I approached with trembling legs, the face I saw was unmistakably my mother's. Silent, motionless. Mom was there. How could this? The nurse explained that after calling me, Mom had returned to my father's room. A while later, they found her collapsed over the bed, still holding my father's hand, already lifeless. Perhaps a heart attack. As the nurse spoke, another nurse appeared. Mrs. Miller, your father. At the same moment, I returned to my father's room. He passed away. No way. No way. I felt as if all strength had drained from my body. I couldn't understand what had just happened. Both my parents gone, just like that. It was too surreal to believe. I stood there, stunned, for what felt like an eternity. I need to tell Austin. In a daze, I remembered to contact Austin. Shaking, I took out my phone and called him. As the phone rang, the reality of my parents' death hit me. And I couldn't stop the tears. Hello? Austin. What? I'm at work right now. But it's an emergency. My dad and Mom have. What? They're gone. What? I managed to say through my sobs. Both of them are gone. Both of them? How? An accident? No, but I don't know what to do. Despite my obvious distress, Austin's response was cold and detached. Did you forget what I said before my trip? What? I'm on a business trip. Don't call me unless it's a real emergency. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what Austin had said. It was probably because his response was so far from what I had expected. I thought I had misheard, but the shock made my tears recede. What did you just say? I told you not to call unless it's an emergency. My parents just died. Isn't that an emergency? If they were about to die, maybe. But what's the point now? That's not an emergency. What are you talking about? You're coming home, right? What? Why? It's too late. I'm busy. Goodbye. Austin hung up, and no matter how many times I tried, he didn't answer again. Then I called Marie. Marie, my parents passed away. Oh. I thought it was just your father who was sick. Yes, but both of them. Well, isn't that nice? They were such a loving couple. Better for them to go together. What? You know, they say loving couples go to heaven together. They must be happy. How can you say that? Well, you'll be busy now with the wake and the funeral. But it's good you can do it all at once. Louis and I won't be attending. What? We don't want to risk our health. Leaving people's health is more important, you know. In that moment, I realized the saying, like father, like son, was true. But it brought me back to reality. I informed my supervisor about my parents' passing. Unlike Austin or my in-laws, my superior, through a stranger, showed genuine concern. He even helped me arrange the funeral at the church. Without him, I would have been completely lost. Despite Austin's words, I thought he would return for the funeral, but he never did. Thanks to my supervisor, colleagues, friends, and relatives, I was able to say goodbye to my parents. And the real sorrow hit me after the funeral, when I returned to my parents' house and faced their photographs alone. I never imagined they would both pass away so suddenly. I couldn't believe that. This is like a bad dream. I'll wake up to the same routine as before. I talked to their photos. This can't be true, Dad, Mom. It's not fair to leave me alone like this. I held their pictures and cried like a child. After crying, I realized the harsh reality. Austin, who didn't bother to show up, and in-laws, who didn't even attend the funeral, I had no family left to support me. Anger towards Austin began to build up. How could a husband not rush to his wife's side at such a time? Saying such things during work, that's not normal. I was prepared for what was to come. 5 days after the funeral, 3 days later than planned, Austin returned, acting as if nothing had happened. I couldn't understand how he could be so indifferent. So your parents' funeral is over, huh? Of course. What do you think? Well, I extended my trip by 3 days to avoid the funeral hassle. Must have been fun for you. It's work, not fun. But you're lucky now. No need to worry about your parents' old age. Any insurance money coming in? Austin's face had a smile. He seemed almost inhuman. I wondered if he was an alien, unable to understand human feelings or words. Are you serious? Yeah. How much of that money do I get? What? Of course, right. A wife's money belongs to her husband. I felt Terry's coming again, wondering why I married such a man. When I stayed silent, Austin looked around the room. He finally seemed to notice the change in the house. What? The house seems so tidy. I cleaned it up. Like you did with your parents? His insensitivity made my fists clench. How far can this person test one's patience? How could he not offer a single word of comfort to his grieving wife? But he was clueless about reality. It was time for me to make him understand. I took a deep breath and looked up at Austin. I'm going on a long business trip. Take good care of Louis and Marie. What? Austin seemed confused, looking around the house. Still nothing grasping what I meant. Where are Mom and Dad? Did they go shopping? He just realized they're not here. Where did they go? To the hospital. They hurt their backs. While I was away from my parents' funeral, my in-laws tried to move a very heavy piece of furniture from my room to theirs and ended up with lower back strains. When I returned, they were in agony, unable to move, having gone without food or water for 2 days, unable to even go to the bathroom. I wondered if this was some kind of divine retribution. I called an ambulance, but didn't accompany them, explaining we weren't related. Emergency vehicles don't allow non-relatives to ride along. I gave the paramedics Austin's number, But knowing him, he probably didn't answer unknown calls. Why didn't you contact me? Well, you didn't come back even when your parents-in-laws passed away, so I assumed you wouldn't for a back injury. Don't equate your parents with mine. Your parents are strangers, but mine are family. Oh, I see. That's reassuring. Then you'll take good care of them. What do you mean by take care? If they're immobile for too long at their age, they might end up bedridden. Austin started trembling. That's not true, right? You'll do well taking care of your precious parents. I have an important business trip. Our parents are in trouble, and you're talking about business trip? Are you even my wife? What? I glared at Austin. Which mouth is he speaking with? How dare he, who ignored his own in-laws' death, say that to me? But I learned from you that business trips are more important than family emergencies. That's different. He never imagined his own parents in such a situation, especially during his important business trip. If I had been treated well by my in-laws, I might have felt obligated to care for them. But unfortunately, I felt no such inclination. I can't bother with others. Besides, like you said, my parents were family. But yours are strangers to me. Aren't you my wife? And what are you? Weren't you my husband? Even your colleagues were shocked. Colleagues? What are you talking about? Your boss attended the funeral. I had called Austin's company when I couldn't reach him, suspecting something. When I explained that my parents had passed away and I couldn't contact Austin, I learned he wasn't on a business trip but had taken paid leave. Austin lied and went somewhere. Why he lied was clear. He emphasized not to contact him, probably because he was with someone he'd be troubled to be seen with. He was on leave, not a business trip. Where did you go? And with whom? The others. Your colleagues were also wondering where you were during my parents' funeral. You'll probably be asked when you return to work. Austin turned pale. Taking leave isn't a problem, but being unreachable in such a crisis is. He'll have a hard time explaining that. Plus, he's potentially bedridden in loss. He probably just woke up to the reality waiting for him after his enjoyable trip. Anyway, you deal with my parents. It's your job as my wife. I've decided to stop being your wife. I'm here to tell you that. And my long trip is not a lie. I don't lie like you. What do you mean? Stop. I'm divorcing you. I handed him the completed divorce papers. My things are already at my parents' house. Then who will take care of my parents? That would be their son, you. I can't do it. That's none of my concern. Leaving his son Austin behind, I returned to my parents' house. I had checked Austin's computer, finding plenty of photos of him with another woman and evidence of their trip together. I printed everything out, making the divorce process straightforward. I naturally demanded compensation from Austin. His affair and absence from my parents' funeral became widely known at his workplace, leading to criticism from his boss and colleagues. He became uncomfortable at work and eventually resigned. The conflict over the compensation claim and his resignation from work led to his affair partner leaving him. A month later, my former in-laws were discharged from the hospital. They're now homebound, living mostly in bed due to their refusal to do any rehabilitation. They seemed financially stable with their pension and savings, but Austin, unable to find a new job, is only working part-time jobs to barely contribute to the living expenses and care for his parents. He's stuck at home, constantly arguing with them. He called me once, crying, begging me to return, but I refused. My former in-laws also reached out, claiming that Austin's care was inadequate and asking me to return and take over. When I suggested hiring a home health aide with their funds, they refused, wanting to save money without knowing how long they'd need it. Their words, as if expecting me to take care of them cheaply or even for free, made me realize they haven't changed at all. I never want to be involved with them again. I still cry when I think of my kind parents, but I know that constant tears won't let them rest peacefully in heaven. Once I complete the memorial ceremony for my parents, I plan to go on a long-term overseas assignment. I'm ready to move on and give my best, keeping my parents' memories close and living life positively with